Coming up, I got also Willie coming in from Perth, Western Australia. We'll be talking about Super Rugby Pacific Round 6 that happened last weekend. We'll be reviewing the Chiefs versus Moana Pasifika match, and also the Blues and Crusaders match, where the Blues got wasted. I'm done with them. I'm done with the Blues. I'm done with them. I don't think they'll make it. I don't think they'll make top 6. They have to win every single game from now on, and I don't think they can do that. So wait till next year. All right. But before I talk to Willie, I'm going to be talking about the NCAA Men's Basketball Tournament that's on right now in the States. March Madness is in full effect. And I'll just give you guys a recap of what's been going on over there. All right. This episode is brought to you by the WesWes Network. It's also brought to you by WesWesNet.com. Go check out the WesWes Network on all our socials. We're on Facebook, X, and TikTok, and also YouTube, and Instagram as well. So yeah, that's us. Go check us out. Roll the intro. Let's go. All right, that's March Madness, and no, I'm not talking about March Madness in Auckland, where Auckland University is started, and peak hour traffic is overboard right now. It's not that kind of March Madness. It's March Madness over in the States, where the NCAA Tournament, Men's Basketball Tournament, is on in full swing. We've just had the first and second rounds done, and the Sweet 16 are all set to battle out this Friday, which will be on this weekend on ESPN in New Zealand. So, I didn't follow the NCAA tournament last year, but I did follow it the year before, and there was a few upsets then. But I'm following it now. But it seems to be interesting, especially with Duke, with their star Cooper Flagg, who's touted to be number 1 pick this year in the NBA draft. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. He's been injured, so he sprained his ankle a week back. There was speculation whether he will play at all during the tournament, because he's an asset to NBA draft, so you don't want him to to do any more damage to himself, especially when the NBA draft is just around the corner. But they got him to play, and yeah, he's been doing well. You got round 1, which is 64 teams. Round 2, which goes down to 32 teams. Then you got the Sweet 16. Then you got Elite 8. And then the Final 4, and then the championship game at the end there. So with the 4 sections, you got 4 number 1s, right? 4 ranked schools, number 1. So you got the two main ones, the 2 main schools that are number 1 are Auburn, the school where Charles Barkley went to, and Duke, the Blue Devils, which is always kind of like the basketball school in the States, always up there in terms of championships and winning. So Auburn, they got a guy that's similar to Anthony Davis, and his name is Jonai Broom. He's a forward. He's really good in the paint. He's tall and lanky, and he's good at doing those hook shots. And he's just a guy that scores in the paint. And he also leads his team in 4 categories: points, rebounds, assists, and blocks. So he's pretty much doing anything. The only guy that's doing better than him is Cooper Flagg over at Duke. So yeah, you've heard of him on ESPN if you watch ESPN, or you've heard of Poop for Scoop. So some of the teams in the NBA are tanking, because they know that he's going to be number 1 pick. So you tank to get more chances to get into the lottery for the draft. And if you're last at the bottom of the table on the NBA, then you get more balls in the lottery, so you increase your chances of getting number 1 pick. So Cooper Flagg, he actually leads his team in every single category: points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. So 1 more category over Jonai Broom over in Auburn. But these 2 teams, Duke and Auburn, they're the teams that are most likely to make it to the Final 4 and probably make it to the final, the championship final. That's what experts are saying. They're easily the best 2 teams in the whole comp. And the other 2 sections, because of the NCAA West, their number 1 seed is a team called Florida Gators. They're a good football school too, and so they're one of the rare schools that have great football programs and basketball programs as well. So Florida's their number 1 seed in the West. They've got a guard. Their top scorer is a guard named Walter Clayton Jr. He's the top scorer on their team. Over in the NCAA Midwest, you've got number 1 seed over there, Houston. And they've got this backcourt. They've got a mean backcourt, right? They've got a guy named... They got a shooting guard who they say is he's the best shooting guard in the comp right now. LJ Cryer is his name, and his point guard Milos Uzan. So those guys in the back are just running circles around everyone, and that's at Houston. So yeah, out of these 4 number one ranked schools right now in the tournament, kind of look to see them make the Final Four, but it'll probably be a hard road. They'll probably get some challenges during the Elite 8 if they make it past the Sweet 16. But yeah, Auburn and Duke are the 2 teams to beat right now. Yeah, so I started watching on Saturday, and the first round started on Saturday, and there was a few teams that I was looking at that I might think would throw up a good challenge. Or really didn't know who was playing. I just recognized, you associate with these teams through pop culture and stuff. For instance, the Michigan Wolverines. Like if you've seen their documentary, The Fab Five, you know who the Michigan Wolverines are. Louisville is another school, the Louisville Cardinals. So they're a school that's back in the days coached long term by superstar coach Rick Pitino. Back in the days. So they're a high ranking school, and they were ranked at number 6 in the first round, but they actually lost in the first round. So they lost to Creighton. Other teams that bowed out of round 1 was North Carolina Tar Heels. So when you think of North Carolina, you think of Michael Jordan. That's his old school. You think of Jerry Stackhouse. A lot of NBA players come out of North Carolina. So they actually got eliminated in the first round by Ole Miss, 71-64. And the other side of that bracket, the Michigan Wolverines, they faced off with Texas A&M. They beat them 91-79, which puts them in the Sweet 16 facing Auburn. So that could be a good game. On the other side of that draw, you got Ole Miss beating Iowa State 91-78. Ole Miss, you got New Mexico losing to Michigan State 63-71. So in Sweet 16, Ole Miss will battle against Michigan State. So that's the NCAA South. Going to NCAA East, you've got Duke, who was just smoking teams all the way to Sweet 16. So in the first round, they played Mount St. Mary's. They wasted them 93 points to 49. Then they played Baylor and smoked them too, 89-66. And now they're up against the Sweet 16, Duke versus Arizona, which Arizona is probably doing well. They had some close games there. They beat Akron and then they beat Oregon to make it to the Sweet 16. So it looks like Duke probably won't have trouble with them. It's pretty cool because they're smoking teams, and they're cautious of Cooper Flagg because he's injured his ankle. Cautious of him injuring himself again. So because Duke have been pulling ahead of teams by multiple points in the first half, that's allowed Cooper Flagg to just play limited minutes because they don't need him in the second half if they're up by 40 points, right? So they've done that twice. So yeah, they're a team to beat for sure. Staying with the NCAA East, on the other side of that bracket, you got the Mormons at BYU doing well. So they won the game in the first round, and they beat Wisconsin in the second round, 91-89. They face Alabama in the Sweet 16, who pretty much did all right between Robert Morris and St. Mary's. So Alabama and BYU facing off in the Sweet 16. So maybe have a prediction for Elite 8. Maybe Duke will get to BYU. BYU's got a lot of supporters. They've been going to the games and stuff. So I think that'll be the first big test for Duke when they make the Elite 8. When they face either BYU or Alabama. Alabama's the number 2 seed there. So yeah, that'll be a good matchup for Duke. Maybe not easy win for them. Going down to the NCAA West in the first round, you got the defending champs, UConn, coached by Dan Hurley. He's the brother of Bobby Hurley. Bobby Hurley was point guard, played for the Sacramento Kings. He was on that movie Blue Chips. He had a part in that movie Blue Chips with Anthony Hardaway and Shaq. I think he was playing on the opposition team, Indiana, with and Bobby Knight was there. He was on the side, screaming and shouting. But University of Connecticut, UConn. That's where Ray Allen went to. Two-time champs, two-time NCAA champs, last year and the year previous. They are back. I think they lost a lot of players to after being seniors last year. They've lost players, so they come in the tournament as the number 8 seed. They beat Oklahoma in the first game, and then they faced up with the number 1 seed in the West, Florida Gators, and just won by 1 point, or 2 points actually. Florida beat them 77-75. I didn't catch the game because it was early this morning and I was going to go to work, but I did catch the end of the game where they interviewed Danny Hurley, and he was just crying. He was upset. He was crying. But I was thinking, man, that's the passion. That's the passion. He was talking about how he loves his team, how he loves the boys in his team. They battled hard, and to see the tears in his eyes, and he was sniffling. And then at the end of the interview, he couldn't take it. He just walked off because he was like bawling his eyes out and that. So they were beaten by Florida, number 1 seed. On the other side of that table, they're up against Maryland in the Sweet 16. Maryland jumped through first round, beating Grand Canyon 81-49. Then they faced off with Colorado State. Colorado State, which won their first round against Memphis. Now, that's an interesting one because Memphis is a 5 seed and Colorado State is a 12 seed. So that's a bit of an upset. University of Memphis is the university Anthony Penny Hardaway went to. Anthony Hardaway is also the coach of this team right now. And they had some good players there. They had a forward named Dane Danger and a guard. Forgot his name, but they were like a 1-2 punch in that team, and that was surprising that they lost in their first round. So it was very disappointing for Anthony Hardaway. I've got a soft spot for that guy because he was a superstar back in the NBA when he was with Shaq in Orlando, and he had that ACL injury, and it was never the same again. Never got to his superstar heights he did when he was with Orlando and Shaq. But now he's a coach of Memphis now, and it's good to see him go. I was actually rooting for Memphis to go far in the bracket, but they lost 70-78 to Colorado State. So I guess Memphis got a little bit of payback when Maryland faced Colorado State and won that game 72-71, close game in second round, which Maryland moves forward to Sweet 16 to face off with Florida number 1. On the other side of that bracket, you've got Texas Tech against Arkansas. Now, the game I watched in the second round on Saturday was Arkansas versus St. John's, the Red Storm, right? So St. John's is a team I sort of followed back in the days when they had a coach named Mike Jarvis. But St. John's is a school that's in New York City, and a lot of New York ballers come out of that school. Mark Jackson came out of that school, and a few others I remember. But that I think that's a school that if you're a Knicks fan, you're also a St. John's basketball fan too. I saw Spike Lee; he was there at the game too. He was supporting St. John's. So New York school, New York ballers. It was kind of an upset. They're number 2 seed. they wasted Omaha in round 1, 83-59, but then they came across Arkansas in the second round and they lost 75-86. Now Arkansas is the number 10 seed, but the way they Arkansas played when I watched that game, they do not look like a number 10 seed. They look really good. They're a tall team. They probably don't do much three-pointers, but they're good in the paint. They've got this guy, his last name is Brazil. He was doing a lot of damage in the paint there. I'm wondering if some of these guys in Arkansas will make the NBA draft, or if not. But Arkansas look like a really good team. They don't look like a 10 seed at all. And they really put St. John's to the sword there. St. John's were the favorites to beat them in that game. But I think Arkansas, because of their size, they're a pretty tall team. They're pretty bit of their size. But their lack of three-pointers is probably their problem. But they can do everything else real good, eh? So they're up against Texas Tech. I never watched any Texas Tech games. Not sure. They're number 3 seed. But I think this game will be interesting to watch because I know how Arkansas plays, and I'll be wondering if they can implement what they did to St. John's to Texas Tech. And if they go through to the Elite 8, they'll face either Florida or Maryland. So I think games are gonna get pretty good now. If you watch the Sweet 16 this weekend, I think these games will be pretty good. Moving over to NCAA Midwest, you've got the number 1 seed Houston. Houston's the team of their backcourt of LJ Cryer, the best shooting guard in the comp in the bracket, and point guard Milos Uzan. So they smoked Edwardsville 78-40 in the first round. Then they came up against Gonzaga. Gonzaga is a team that's always up there in the brackets. Jalen Suggs, he came from there. Jalen Suggs last year did that, or 2 years ago did a buzzer beater, one of their games in the tournament. So Houston got rid of Gonzaga in the second round, 81-76, and they played Purdue in the Sweet 16. Purdue had a pretty good run, beating High Point round 1, 75-63, then beating McNeese 62-76 in that game. So Houston won. Houston number 1 and Purdue number 4 seed might be a good game, that one. There was a game I watched in round 1, Illinois versus Xavier. Now Illinois, interesting, had a guy speak to the reporter in halftime, and he had a Golima, and his name was, I think, Kylan Boswell. He's half African American, half Samoan. His mum might be Samoan. His dad might be African American. But yeah, man, it's cool to see one of the Usos in the tournament doing his thing. So he plays for Illinois there. They beat Xavier in the first round, 86-73. They faced Kentucky in the second round, but they lost 75-84. Kentucky's those teams that are always sort of those basketball teams like Duke and the Tar Heels, but they seem to be going good, and they've made it to the Sweet 16. They come up against Tennessee, who's the second seed. So Tennessee started off good. They beat Wofford 77-62. Then they faced up against UCLA and beat them 58-67. Now Tennessee's got Kentucky in the Sweet 16 this weekend. So, yeah, that's the bracket so far. What games did I watch? One of the games I watched in the second round, Kansas versus St. John's. Now, I mentioned them before, but one of the things that were appealing to this game for a lot of people were the coaches. So St. John's is coached by Rick Pitino, and Kansas is coached by John Calipari. Two famous college coaches. John Calipari had a long stint with Kentucky, so he's coached a lot of NBA players. They come out of that school, including Anthony Davis, De'Aaron Fox, Bam Adebayo, Malik Monk, and a host of others back in the days. And Rick Pitino, he had a long stint with the Cardinals, the Louisville Cardinals back in the days, and he was successful there. He's the new coach of St. John's. So yeah, it was a battle of the coaching masterminds there with that game. But John Calipari, he won that one. So they're moving on. And that's the team I told you about, that a tall team, not really good three-pointers, shooters, but they can do well in the paint. They can attack in the paint, and they got big dudes. Probably a team I look at to maybe upset a few, because they look like they're the highest ranking, or the lower. They look like they're the lowest ranking team in the Sweet 16 right now. Yeah, they are. So all number ones are not eliminated yet. They're still in there. And the lowest ranking Arkansas, number 10, who really don't play like a number 10, are still in there too. So, yeah, I can't wait to watch Sweet 16 this weekend. See how it goes. I can say that when it comes to college basketball, don't expect NBA level. It's not. It's the athleticism is there. These young kids, they're athletic as, the handles are there. The speed's there. Execution might not be might be there. There's a few. I noticed there was a few air balls, a few easy missed layups, and some forced shots and stuff like that. But I guess that's the quality of the game. But it's still good. It's exciting. It's March Madness for a reason, because you want to see some teams that are gonna get upset. You haven't seen that too much yet. Number ones are still there. But it's March Madness for a reason, and you can never know. It's survive in advance. That's the thing. Each game, you lose one game, you're out. It's elimination each game. So, yeah, that's March Madness update. Which team I'm going for? Looking at the Sweet 16, I'm going for. I don't associate with any of these teams. All I know is who are associated with popular culture. So Michigan Wolverines will be one of the ones. Florida Gators might be one of the ones. Kentucky. I like Kentucky. I like that team when Darren Fox was there. And Arkansas. I think I'll go for Arkansas, because they're a team that I kind of liked. I like their style. Yeah. All right, guys, that's me for March Madness Live. I'll probably do it again. Update you guys again. Next one. All right. Time for some Super Rugby Pacific. All right, everyone, I'm back with also Willie, all the way from Perth, Western Australia. It's good to have you back, also.
Good to be back, man. Yeah, a bit of a hard week this week, so good to watch a few games.
Yeah,
How's things up over in your end?
Man, it feels like summer's sort of extended, eh? It's starting to get cold in the mornings, but then warms up for the afternoon, and still a bit hot, eh? Still a bit hot, but I'm loving it, eh? The extended summer weather.
Yeah.
Going into winter soon, so until that cold continues from morning to afternoon, then it's not winter yet.
No, you're not wrong. Same with us here. Like I said, pretty not as cold, but in the mornings you can feel that cold. But again, it's very similar to your weather. It just sort of heats up, and when it heats up, man. It's like far out.
Yeah. So I'm recording this 4:30 New Zealand time. So the Drua and Force have yet to play. They play at 7 o'clock New Zealand time, but 2 o'clock your time, I think. Eh?
Yeah.
Over there, they're playing over there.
That should be an interesting game. That'll be a good game. And I think the Drua has been unlucky in the last 3-4 games, where they've either lost, or they've just a bit too late in coming back, and then or decisions like the referee decisions have been probably what's costing them the most, to be honest, with penalties. And then I've always maintained, I've always said it before, a bit of an unconscious bias by just the referees, and that's hard to cop. That's hard to cop, man. Like it's when you think you're doing the right thing, and as what they call it, where you're framing the right picture, or the painting the right picture for the referee to make a call on it, and then it has the reverse effect in terms of what they think is positive rugby that they're playing. And that's probably why there's a tendency for them for their penalty rates to like go up, and I kind of feel for them, to be honest. But should be a good game. The Force, I think both teams need a win. And that's where
both desperate, eh?
Yeah, that's right.
Wins. But we can't review that because that game is on yet. But man,
no.
I want to talk to you about 2 games that happened in the weekend. So the Chiefs and Moana. So I actually missed that game because I was at a birthday. I was at a birthday party on Friday night. But I did watch the highlights after that. But you caught that game on the way home, eh, man?
Yeah, when I'm finishing work, I think it's probably 3:30 here, and that's when that game's already started, I think. So I put it on my phone, and on the way home I'll just sort of have the commentary on and listen and sort of look over when there's a bit of time while I'm on the freeway, man. So, but that was a good game. That was a bit of like I think when you spoke about it before, it was a game of 2 halves. To be cliche, really cliche, but it was. Like the Chiefs. I think everybody after when the Chiefs got up to the early lead, everyone thought coming in the second half, that's it. It was the Chief was just getting ready to put the rest of the dirt on their burial site for the Moana. But man, whatever the coaches said in the halftime really turned them around, and again it just showed that they're resilient. They were the resilience to come back from, I guess, from that type of scoreline. Man, that's deflating for a team, eh? You'd going into halftime shed and thinking, "Oh man, we've got to come back," but that showed great leadership, to be honest. And I think we spoke about it previously. And the other podcast was about, the difference that Artie would make, what type of effect it would, bring onto the team. And I think that the game against the Hurricanes, where he went off, and this game, that's really highlighted his effect on the team. Like they can really come out and just come in and just do their work and do the simple things right. And they'll get the rewards, which they did in the second half, and again in that game against the Hurricanes, without Artie, but the other leaders stood up. I think that guy for the captain from Moana on the Chiefs game, he's really taken to that role and been that second set of eyes and ears for Artie on and off the pitch, because man, like he put in a good shift, man. So we've got Tom or Tormasi is what the boys call him. What those guys call him is Tormasi Savage. So he was, that game there was really, I think it was you as a Moana Pasifika supporter, you'd be proud with them coming back from a scoreline like that, man, because like to be down that deep in the first half. Like not many teams come back and almost sort of take the game back a bit. Probably the only team that would be able to do that at the moment would be the Chiefs. Where they go down that far and they can play that catch-up rugby really good. But from a performance, there was some really good. Like Havili played well. He played well.
Intercept that try. Yeah.
And those things that sort of. Everything stuck for them in that second half, and it's just probably because of the belief and that resilience that they probably spoke about in that shed. You gotta think, you gotta commend the coaches for that. Like probably 2 years ago, I remember when I think Aaron Major and Philo Tiatia were the coaches, and I think they came here to Perth and they went out on a really good, No, sorry, it was the game against their first game against the Force. When they were right up, and they were leading in that game against the Force, and the Force came back and beat them in the end. So, well, you'd think that those lessons from those losses, but would have really shown them about their resilience. But then just about finishing those games, eh? You know, like if you can't go to sleep, you you know you start slow. You start slow, but you end up fast, and you finish fast. You know that's a hard thing to. It's hard to catch up, man. It's hard to play catch up rugby, man. But you know, look, they almost pulled it off. So I mean, hats to them. Some of the play miracle man like Miracle Whailangi, he's a standout man. So I'm wondering what his eligibility is. You know,
He plays for Manu.
yeah.
That's the last time he played international.
So he's not eligible to on a stand down for the All Blacks, is he?
Maybe 3 years.
Yeah, but you know that he played well. He played out of position. He played at 7. You know, so but then you know the other guys played really well too. You know that Sama Malolo, he played really well. Really played really well, to be honest. So there is some good signs in there with Moana. I think they'll, like I said, I think what I said before we recorded. You know, like there's some. You know, I think it just sort of takes another few more. You know, current All Blacks who are still in their peak of their careers to sort of make that shift across to the Moana Pasifika team and sort of really make an input and, you know, make an impact in that, you know, the same way as Ari did. And you see the growth and I see some of the, you know, there's some real good stories around what they've done. I've seen some on, I think, some social media there where they had the Moana Pasifika where they showed their combine that they used to bring the next talent through from, man, it's an awesome. Like it's just how they set it up, and you'd like to think that that's that pathway for those kids out of the islands, you know, and not just Samoa but Tonga, Fiji, you know, like Fiji have the Fijian draw like what we spoke before, so I think it's a good thing. You know, I'm seeing the positive side at the moment of you know, of Moana Pasifika and what it's doing. So hopefully you'd like to see that, you know, the teams really, the players representing their countries from it. So for the Chiefs, yeah, I think the Chiefs will think they'll be getting smoked as that training this week. You know, that the coaches will be hunting them. You know, with I think from their own standards, you know, like from their own standards, they would have said that wasn't good enough. They should have. I think if you would have heard the interview from the captain, and he was pretty good about it. You know, pretty humble about their win, but then also acknowledged that Moana aren't easy beats, is what everybody is. You know, like how they've been in probably the last couple of years. So, and that's a good recognition of what the coaches and the players are doing at Moana Pasifika. You know, like, man, can't fault that. If you're the leading team in the comp, probably acknowledging, you know, that them as a team are probably just as dangerous as any other team.
The final score was 35-50 to the Chiefs, but probably doesn't reflect the game because, you know, we said a game in 2 halves.
Yeah.
The Chiefs really attacked and their backline, a lot of the tries came from their backline and they smoked Moana, eh? Like, they're so awesome, and you know, I want to contrast their backline to the Blues backline when we get to the Blues, but man, that is a sharp team, eh? The Chiefs, eh? When they're on, and they were on in that first half. The second half, though, they didn't even score until the last, I think, final 2 minutes of the game. So, yeah, the score was like 20, I think it was 28-7 to the Moana, the second half score. As opposed to being 40, I think it was 43-7 in the first half.
Yeah, that's right.
to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So. And we always said that Moana is a second half team. But the inspiration, like you said, the inspiration that Ali Sevilla has brought on the boys, like, it's got something to do with it, eh? It's got something to do with it. If Moana can just, I don't know, have good starts and just and play like their second half, into the first half. Like they're slow starters, eh? That's one thing they have to overcome, right? But still, they leaked 42 points, 43 points in the first half. You can't really do that, but you can, and they can come back. But you're right, the catch up rugby is hard to play, eh?
Yeah. I don't know any team that can leak 43 points in the first half and then expect to come back in the second half. And when like I said before, probably the Chiefs would be one of the only teams that could do that. But yeah, you're always behind the eight ball, man, when you leak that many tries, and that just goes back to goes back to their efforts and their defense systems. Like that just goes who's being lazy and who's just sort of going through the motions. Like that's one that'll be a big on their reviews. This coming Monday, and just seeing, you see all those big props just getting off the ruck after 4 offside rucks, but that's all about, and also just preparation, like, and that's what I mean, like when you talk about the likes of Artie and his preparations, and just how, and it's not just preparation on the game day, it's that whole week. Are they prepping themselves in that whole week just to sort of be ready for the game on Saturday? And like I said, a lot of those boys in that team, like they're still new into that, like it's new and like not real understanding. I think a big example of like prepping themselves during the whole week. It's Sonny Bill. He was one, like, he was relentless with his and I think that he was the one that also changed the mindset of Ma'a and Nonu and them, about how he prepares. Like it was just everything was processed, and he knew what he had to do at certain times. So I think that once those boys in the Moana Pasifika have a better understanding of getting themselves, and not the coach or not the mental skills coach, about themselves getting them ready, I think there'll be the next coming year they'll start knocking over the better teams. I think the only thing that'll be against them again, it'll be the fitness. Which is probably a lot of the stuff that probably the biggest hindrance for the Polynesian boys is that when they off season with the Inga, and then it's put on a few kilos. But yeah, like that preparation for them is key to really get a good start to that. Yeah, you can't keep on. You can't win a championship if you don't start well.
Yeah, and on the Chiefs side, like if you're a Chiefs fan, you'll probably be thinking, you can't. If it was a case of them taking their foot off the gas in the second half because they're up by heaps, then you don't want to think that the coach will be happy with that, because
No.
because it's when we talk about game of two halves, something has changed, and it doesn't matter. It's in all games, like when one team dominates and then the opposite team dominates in the second half. So something has changed. I wonder what has changed for the Chiefs to. If it's an attitude thing, then yeah, that's something the coach would bring up during training day and try to sort it out. But
to be honest, it's definitely a shift of attitude. Because the when you're up by that much, then they'll think, right, let's play the ball all the time. They go away from their game plan and what they want to do, and so then they start throwing you would have seen the 50-50 ball go, or the backdoor passes, or all of that. You can sort of see the changes, and that's where you see the drop balls, and then players trying to beat too many players. Like it's beat one or two, look for your support and offload, and the next person adds value to that play. But you could probably go through that whole game, and you can see so many little things that caused them to sort of probably just got complacent, thinking that they'd already, and players do, think like that. Not many would admit to it, but, like there'll be players there that'll try and run the ball from the 22 instead of what they would normally do is, okay, there's a line in front of you, I'll kick the ball out, and reset and then get ready for the next one, and defend the line out rather than trying to run the ball out, get caught in your 22, and then, everybody else has to work harder just to try and get back and recoup the ball or help out in that ruck. So I think it's two things: complacent, just players being complacent, and then just thinking about that it's the mindset would be let's have a go. We're up by this much, doesn't really matter. But then with a team like Moana and you'll see that with teams like Moana or the Highlanders or the Force, to be put it, or the Drua, when they're up by that much, you'll see the change in how they attack. The different. But if they're playing the likes of Queensland or the Waratahs or the Crusaders it's a different mindset. Like the mindset would be all about let's just be conservative in the way we play the rugby, but also if there's space or opportunity to go, then they'll take it. Whereas in that game there, 43-7 come second half, and sweet. To be honest, if the Chiefs had just maintained that same momentum that they had in the first half, that would have been a way a bigger score than 50. And that's just again, it's just a shift of mindset from the players as individuals, really. And the coach would highlight that, man. Like the coach he wouldn't be happy that they took their foot off the pedal. I know I wouldn't. I wouldn't be that happy. Like, man, you had them 43-7 in the first half. So, but the coaches will go back then and just say, what could we have done better at half-time talk? Maybe a thing that they could have done was probably just replace the whole backline or put the bench on. Just to set different, because it brings a different mindset. Like the players are coming on board and then trying to stick with that structure, and then because at least those guys on the bench would want to prove something as well, so there will be that, all right, let's just, but I don't think they started subbing until a bit later probably in the 50th minute.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting how they come back with that with the next game. So the Chiefs, their next games, they've got the Reds at home next week, so they'll probably have to try and find a way to be consistent for two halves. And then they've got the Waratahs.
That's a good run, eh? That's a good run, though, like, especially for the Chiefs. It's a good run in terms of now they're playing the tougher two teams from the Aussies, the better teams from the Aussie comp. Yeah. And that's not being disrespectful to the Brumbies and that, who lost yesterday, so but I think that'll be a really hard one for well, not hard, but it'll be a good tester for them for where they are, going deeper in the rounds.
Especially winning away. So they're in Sydney for the Waratahs game. So I think that'll be a hard game for them, considering the Waratahs won late, like you said. But they're at home next week against the Reds. The Reds don't do well away. Although they did beat Highlanders, eh?
Yeah, that was the other game I was watching, and I watched a bit of it, sorry, not all of it, but I was a bit gutted with that, because I was hoping that the Highlanders would win, to be honest. I was hoping that the Zoo was going to have a big party down there to win, but didn't look like it.
And then the Chiefs are back at home playing Highlanders.
We're in the Tron.
Yeah. So good. I think they're all winnable games, but it's the difficulty of them, eh? Like if if they can beat the Waratahs at home, that'll be a big one.
Yeah.
As for Moana, they've got they've got the Crusaders next week
Down in Christchurch.
down in Christchurch, which is it's gonna be a hard one. Hard one for them. Then they got the Waratahs at home, North Harbour Stadium, and then they've got the Blues. Then they got the Blues at Eden Park, which is probably an earmarked game for like a home derby for Auckland.
Yeah. The Battle of the Bridge.
Battle of the Bridge, yeah. A new Battle of the Bridge. But that's a winnable game for Moana, considering the way the Blues are going. That's a winnable game. So that would be guttering if the Blues lose to Moana.
And you'd like to think that Artie will be back for that game too, Because he'll be up for that game.
Yeah.
Because he'll want to prove a point too. Like I said, man, he's my preferred number 7. He's my preferred number 7, even over Dalton Papali.
Mm-hmm.
He's more effective on the ground. He's a better link man. So I think that I think once they sort of get the number 8s right for the All Blacks, I think then we'll see how that goes.
And he's starting to make some forced turnovers now,
Hey?
He's starting to make some turnovers now.
Who, Artie?
Yeah, Artie. He's turning the ball over now.
Yeah, but he's playing in the position that that allows him to do that. You know what I mean? Whereas 8, you're not. It's a different role. You have to play and that. But the mindset's always the mindset for him as a Lucy is 8 and then 7, but it'd be 7 and then 8. You know what I mean? That's how it should be set.
So we come to Saturday's game I went to at Eden Park. I got invited by Jib. So Jib, the passport.
Yeah.
So they invited our work to come and watch the big rivalry against the Blues and Crusaders. So I'm glad that it was a free ticket. Because the way that the outcome of that game, I would have wasted my money, man.
I think half of the Auckland population would have agreed with you there also. And that's coming from Auckland, like 4 years, I'm from an Auckland supporter myself. But just to, I think when Dalton scored that try, I think everybody's energy was thinking, oh right, sweet, they're there, but and that's a strange thing. Well, it's not strange, man. And I'm a big believer. It happens with the Wallabies, and with the Wallabies teams. With the Australian team, it's that they score the first try and they think they react. Like they've won the game already. Like that was just still another 60, 70 minutes to go.
But there's a pattern here because the Blues have scored first in few of the games, and which hypes the crowd up even more.
Yeah,
it's sort of like a hype for
teaser,
no reason.
really.
A teaser, because then it just falls apart after that. But they always look good in the first 5 minutes of the games, and they always score the first try, it looks like. But that try, that Papali try, that came off a pass that started in the midfield from Taele. Instead of running straight, he looked for the open man, and it was the hooker, Mulan.
Renat. Oh, Mullen.
Yeah.
Mullen. And he could move too, man, for a big boy, he could move.
Although his lineouts went down great.
Yeah, that's but he
lost
made
a few lineouts.
Yeah, he made up for that was his first game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was that his first game? That was his
first
debut.
game. Yeah.
So I thought he was all right. To be honest, going around, around the field, he was all right. Yeah, you're right about the lineout thrown and that.
Well, he got that pass in open space, and he ran the line, and then he passed it to Dalton Papali for that try. Yeah. And that was in the 3rd minute. So, for me, on the stands, I was throwing my hands up, going, I think we're going to win this game.
But also, it wasn't just you, man. That was everybody around you at Eden Park, man. But, like in saying that, I really... I like that Taylor kid. I think he's like what you said. I think he's more of a centre He's more suited as a centre than a second five. Like he could be a ball player, second. Like probably that's what they're using him for. As that second pivot player, playmaker. Like Perifeta was off, man. Like he's.
Yeah, for his first game, number 10, maybe they threw him in too early. It looked like, because I forgot he played last week. He came off the bench last week. He went into fullback, I think. Or did he take over Bonnie Barrett when he went off?
Plummer. Plummer was starting last week when Barrett had already gone, eh?
Yeah.
Barrett didn't play. But, he just didn't do it, man.
He dropped the crucial high ball, when they came down and he dropped it, and then led to try the first. I think it was the first try from Crusaders. Shea Vihaki. He just ran a straight line.
Yeah, but
for 10, 12, 15 meters and no defense. It's like, what the hell?
Well, defense was there. There was just no effort. Like they didn't even that was Satutu.
Oh,
that was.
But the other guys were standing around. It looked like.
Yeah, it was you. That was you, blaming each other. And that's what I mean. They weren't. They're not connected. It just looks like. Yeah, it just looks like they're disconnected in the way that they are, that they're playing, or whether they're training or understanding of what they want to do. They're defensive. Just they're defensive.
It looked like to me they can't. They struggle to regroup when something goes wrong. That was the moment when that Shea Vihaki try. I thought, man, these guys didn't even know what to do when they're under pressure. When all of a sudden,
but that's your captain, that way. You know what I mean? That's your captain, and at the moment, who they had as captain, it was Paddy Tupolotu, and he's injured, and then they used Rico last night, eh? Like, just because you're a senior player there doesn't make you a good captain. And that's the thing. You might have all the knowledge and all of that stuff, but doesn't mean that you're a good leader. No,
we talked about him a little bit before jumping mics, and we had that conversation on he should be a wing, not a centre. Yeah, and I think I have to agree with that. He is a finisher. But yeah, do you think that he would make the All Blacks? Because judging from this game, he had a really bad game. He made 3 handling errors. He only made 8 out of 6 tackles, but those handling errors were like uncharacteristic. He dropped the ball a few times. Like he had those little. We talked about those micro skills that Drua and Moana lack, but this guy had it all game that game. Yeah. So he wasn't even concentrating. That's what I think.
No, yeah,
his mind wasn't there.
And what made him different as a leader to everyone else was that he knew he wasn't as skillful as Artie. He wasn't as like in terms of the talent and all of that as some of the Polynesian boys. But what he knew that he could do was he was relentless with what he's doing, like he's just focused on the basics. If he tackled well, he did the turnovers well, he led. That's how he led, by his actions, and then all the talking, and that's where the respect came from, you know what I mean? Like his respect was made out of all his hard work on the ground, getting smoked over, getting clotheslined, like putting his body on the line for the team. That was how he gained that respect for his teammates. And then being able to then just easily be able to have to make decisions, but not just him making the decision. He had a group of older guys in the team that could say, yeah, okay, well, this way. If we do if that's a penalty, do we take a scrum or a line out? Like in those moments that where the Crusaders scored that try, that's when the moment as a captain you would have said, all right, bring it in, reset. What's our next job? Is to contest for the restart or put some pressure on. And the other thing I noticed was that, I noticed that, and the commentary picked it up, was that the Crusaders were putting pressure on the first ball player. So from that pod system, they were putting heat on that person catching that ball off the halfback every time. So it was forcing him to make those decisions. The same, that where there was a kick that Crusaders kicked down to the Blues. Mark Talia caught it, but he had Shea Fihaki on him, and he fended him off really well, and that led to that knock on where he said from Rico. So Mark Talia passed the ball, and that's where the decisions and the communication from a team said, like, just get that ball downfield, man, like, because all of their forwards were in front, so just get that ball, kick it down, and then you bring your forwards there, and that's but then they tried to run the ball from their 22, which they did. They managed to get it out of the 22, but then Rico knocked it on from what Sevu Reece did. Knocked the ball over his hand while making a tackle, and then that was where that try came from.
So that play, the beginning of that play, the decision that Talia made to pass the ball instead of kicking the ball, was that a 50-50 decision? Like, this could go off both ways. We could run this wide and try to score that way, or we'll use tactics and kick that ball, get our forwards up there. They'll force another kick. We'll get it out, have a line out closer to the end line.
It is a 50-50 call, but if you're wanting to, run the ball, then that was, that wasn't a bad decision. It wasn't. Not saying it's a bad decision. Was it the right time at that time? Maybe not, because they're leading early days. Just settle. Like, it would have been just settle, punch that corner, like even that kick. Because Mark's got a good kick. It doesn't have to go out, or at least if you put it in front and move up, because your forwards and the rest of your team are in front of you. But then to make the call and pass it out to Rico, and then Rico trying to take the outside, like, you got Sevu Reece out there who's just as quick. And that's where he went through past one of the forwards, and Reece was covering, and just knocked the ball out of his hand, and like what you talked about, like those micro skills about when you make, as soon as you feel your jersey being pulled, should be a switch, okay, because you've got to protect the ball at all times. That's what you're playing for at the end of the day, So then take that tackle, go down and reset, and, then by then your forwards would have set up, your back line would have been knocked on, and then they, from there I think the try was scored out of that, So that's the tough part about that. It was just Rico as a player. Like, he's a good player. Like, I don't deny his skill sets and what he can do, but as a centre, it's not really. And that's just a personal opinion, to be honest. He's a finisher, like he's shown in his whole career. He's a finisher, and he celebrates it. He celebrates a try like a finisher. I don't know many centres in the All Blacks and that celebrated the way he celebrates, like you look at Conrad Smith, never does, scores a try, jogs back, and that, like just Bruce Robertson, even the current head of rugby in New Zealand, he was
it's all about maximising Rico's skill set, and I believe we believe that being in centre, it doesn't do that. It doesn't.
No. It actually limits what he can do with the ball. Like,
and it's kind of weird, because not weird, but it's kind of because he's played centre for a long time, especially for the All Blacks. The All Blacks put him in there, so the Blues have to put him in there. So now he's sort of stuck in this. But he's a good enough player to transition back to wing if they decide that you're better off in the wing.
Yeah, no.
So
no, that's right. But has he been that effective for the All Blacks at centre? I don't think so. He hasn't been. They haven't. What's the word? Like, they haven't really got the best out of him since he's moved into centre. If anything, it's gone backwards, and now you've got other wingers coming up. That are making the most of their time on the wing.
Sam's only got other midfielders coming up. The midfield pairing and the Chiefs with Tupaya and Leonard Brown, they've been awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's whether can they take that to the next level, and like, a backline is always good when there's a cohesive partnership. Like what you said, Leonard Brown, Tupaia, Quinn Tupaia. Like, it's always hard to try and get a 13 from Auckland and then a 12 from down in, the Chiefs, or down in down at Crusaders. You look at the 12. Look, Havili played well. Did he play well with what's his name, Braden Eno? I don't know. But like, I think Havili's playing really well, to be honest. Probably some of his best rugby at the moment at 12. But again, like, he's played some really good games for the Crusaders in the past, but has never produced it at an All Black level. Like, it's that's just too much pressure coming through early. When you're at international level, and everybody knows how to put pressure on the All Blacks now.
The Blues are 1 for 6 now, and it's not good enough if you compare to where they were last year, like when winning the whole championship, the defeating champs, and they only won 1 game in 6 games. But what do you think is wrong with the Blues? Is it personnel? Is it the injuries they've got? That they've got certain guys last year in the right spots that this year, with the disruption with injuries, you got a rotation of loose forwards because of injuries. Akita's not there. Because you had that small rotation of loose forwards last year. You had Papa Lee, you had Akita, and Sotutu. They were consistent, right? Now you don't, because of injuries. They're not really consistent. But there's other injuries as well. But is that what you put it to? Because they had a full squad in round 1 and round 2, and they still lost. So is it a case of their game plan, last year's game plan, not working? Or is how they changed the rules to speed up the game, is that working against their favour now?
No, look, I don't think it's a case of personnel. Like, in that type of environment, if you're part of the squad, if you're part of the water squad, you're training the same amount of time. You're doing the same trainings. You're eating the same. Well, you should be eating your diet should be very similar. Your how you're taking information, the skills that you're learning, and stuff like that. So I don't think it's a personnel issue. Could it be an attitude issue from the players and the way how they apply those skills on the field and stuff? Yeah, maybe. I think some of those players are playing in the wrong position. Again, we highlighted, Rico's one. And again, I'll harp on where I'm a big supporter of Caleb Clark playing at 12. You look at him when he gets the ball out wide and he cuts back inside. Like, how many meters and how many people does he bump off every time he cuts back on the inside, Like, you could utilise that, and like, he's still only 24, 25. These great centres don't really become great centres until they're in their 30s. So there's time there that they can actually, and it's not like he doesn't have a good teacher in his backyard, eh? Like, when you've got a father who's been playing in the centres and the 12 in centre roles for the Blues and the All Blacks, man, like that's those skills are going to come naturally, which it already does with Caleb. But I feel he's there from a 10. No, I don't, and no disrespect to Perifeta as a person or as a player, but he's not a 10. Like, he can't drive that team around. Like, I don't. He hasn't been able to do that in the last couple of years. Plummer was the one that drove the team last year, but then even then, like, Plummer's leaving. So that's not going to be. So you want to be looking further down the road. You want to be looking at who's the next one after Perifeta and Barrett. I don't see anyone coming through. Like, yet the Crusaders, and you look at the Crusaders, they've gone and brought in these young boys. That Taha Tamara or something from.
Yeah, I like him. He's good.
Yeah,
He's a good runner.
He's not even from the Crusaders region. He's from the Chiefs region.
Yeah, he was able to Bullseye, I think.
Yeah, so that's how. That's smart recruiting. And Auckland Rugby can't tell me that the Blues Rugby can't tell me that there's no other 10 in club rugby or in the Auckland comp that's good enough to be, or even in the Auckland schools comp. Like it's probably it's the biggest comp in New Zealand, but surely they have someone in there that can actually run and control a team. And the reason I say that, because Perfetta, he's not, Barrett, he won't be there in the next couple of years, but it doesn't look like there's the next one coming through. Like you'd think, are they relying on those guys to that? Like really, like Perfetta should have been subbed straight probably after the 30 minutes.
And then in hindsight, you would have thought that Palmer should have started 10 and Perfetta at fullback. I like him as a fullback.
Yeah.
Rather than a 10.
Yeah, that's right. But then you've got, what do you do with Forbes? Is he injured or wasn't just picked?
I think he was off the bench, I think.
Like I rate Forbes over Evans. So again, just sort of from a selection, that goes down to a selection point of view and how they're training during the week. And look, you have some players, Usman, that would train their house down. Like on the training day they'll be training like Tarzan, and then come in the game and they play like Jane, man. Like not that Jane will probably be playing harder than them. Like say for somebody like Cameron Suafoa. Oh, he's a better number 8. Like he's athletic, he's good with the ball in hand, but he also does the hard work and in the tight work when needed. He
played lock last year because he was the loose chairs were too full, so he had to play lock.
But he's better than he played a lot better at 8.
Yeah, he did.
Then when Satutu was suspended, I would have started him and brought Satutu on later. Like Satutu is we jump onto the Satutu thing. It's like he's almost like one of those like Payne Haas. Like but I was listening to a chat show earlier this week, actually. I think this week or last week, and it had Willie Mason in it. Mason, there's a show that he does, and he made some really good comments around Payne Haas, and which is why I put him and Satutu in the same mold, because like they could both play 80 minutes easy, but are you getting maximum results for that? Like you're getting a player that just floats in and out. Whereas, so what Brisbane is doing, or what Maguire is doing to Payne Haas at the at Broncos, is that I'll play you for 30 minutes, go in there hard, and just cause carnage, and then come out, give you a rest for 20 minutes, and then go back out. And that's what you could do to somebody like to not in that way of because you're unable to sub off, on and off, but almost like, well, leave him come off the bench, or say, all right, for the first 40 minutes, you just give me what you got. That means, because you can see it, man. Like he just, when he's got the ball in it, and everybody says, yeah, no, but he's good on attack, he's good at this, but like. The game is won on both sides of the ball. Like you can't just attack and attack and attack. You also got to jackal for the ball. You've got to do the other side the other stuff on over the ball on the other side, where you look at other number eights, like I say there's Christian, and then there's what's his name for the Chiefs, Jacobs. He does that really well. Like he's as a defensive player, he's really good. And when he attacks, he attacks. And then you look at the likes of the guys down at the Hurricanes. Peter Lakai playing at 8. He's pretty good. So those are things where I think if I was a coach, I would look at that and I say, well, how can I maximise Satutu's skill set? Man, go hard for that first 40, or maybe for the last 40. Just come in and go hard. Rather than giving him 80 minutes or 60 to 70 minutes, and you're only going to get a subpar, performance, because he's trying to almost, for me, it's almost like he's trying to conserve his energy throughout to last the whole game. And that's where you see him. Like you see him, he looks like he's not even puffing. I could be wrong. The kid might be sick, just like what Jonah was, and everybody dissing him. But you don't know whether he's got those issues. So look, that
A lot of things that failed for me for the Blues was the execution. They missed a lot of opportunities to try and score tries or come back, or it's just the execution. But then when I think about what's their problem, like what's the difference between now and last year? Well, we talked about their new hooker and losing a few lineouts. They were first in the whole comp last year in lineouts. They were first in 6 different categories in the whole comp last year. They're not even first to any. But I think, do you think it's the speed of the game now? That's sort of the difference here. Is the game plan, the Blues the game plan that worked for them last year is not working this year? Because other teams have figured them out?
no,
Or they're just not adapting? Or the execution is just not as it was last year?
no, I don't think it's it. Well, it's the execution, definitely, like the execution of just those small micro skills that we spoke about earlier. That's one, and that just comes back to the individual. That's a player. That's a player thing. Like it's again, we go back to their focus and just their lack of just being in the moment. But then the other thing we were saying, what you were saying about, is it the speed of the game? Nah, man. Like I said, the Blues have been known in the past for the speed of how they play the game. Like hit the rucks, quick ball. But even when they're cleaning up, man, like, and probably I guess the rules have some effect on that. Like when in the years gone by, when the Blues would hit a ruck, when the Blues player would hit a ruck, like you would see them hit a ruck, they'd clean somebody out, but now like you're going into a ruck and you've got to be careful going into clean a ruck. Because you could hit somebody, your shoulder could hit somebody on the back of their head, and that's deemed as dangerous play. So those are things, but that doesn't mean that they still can't play the game at speed. Like, man, again, they've got athletes. I don't think they have enough, to be honest. I don't think they have enough players from Auckland in its Auckland region. Like that actually sort of understand the history of Auckland rugby or the history of the Blues, and because when you look at the Chiefs, and they're all about culture and what it means to play for the Chiefs and the Chiefs region and who they're representing in the Chiefs region. But who are the Auckland players representing? Do you know what I mean? Like, are they representing the guys that drink coffee down at Ponsonby Road, or down in the city, or do you know what I mean? Or are they representing the wider community from those Otara, or out west, or Grey Neelan, or do you know what I mean? It's a different, but that's a coach bringing in the type of culture and wanting to play for something, which is what Moana Pasifika are doing over on the other side of the shore. They've managed to get a lot of all those wouldn't be surprised if they have some Saffers playing for them in a couple of years. Like it's just but and then you look down the motorway down in Hamilton, and that's the biggest shift. That's if there was ever one that was where they played for something, there's a purpose for them. There is the Chiefs, man, because they've actually taken that and just made it unique to them. It's almost like a tribal. It's a tribal thing. And whereas Auckland, but there's as much as that kid that Anton Segner and that, but surely there's some kids in Auckland playing in either club rugby or playing in the schoolboy comp or whatever that just as good as him. We just don't seem to have produced any good loose forwards. Like, and everybody you talk about Akira, yeah, he was good, but he was just
finally
lazy.
good because he was finally good the last year before he left.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then it's one key thing what you said earlier was just probably the execution of these skills. That's a key one, because that's, man, you can't be dropping balls just that easy, or when you go into a ruck or getting held, and you just can't be giving the ball away. And just with the way the game is, like the turnover plays are that quick, Like as soon as a team gets a turnover, as they're looking for the space, where's the space? Get it out there or kick it to the space, so that it becomes a territory. But
this game in particular, for me, it was execution. It was they found it hard to scramble back on the defense because it led to those easy tries. I thought to Fiaki and that, and then it was just attitude. The attitude on defense. Yeah, those are the main things for me.
Was shit.
Yeah, those are the main things for me.
Yeah, like and that's
you can't have that on this level. You can't have it on this level. Like these are coach killers and these are fan killers too, man.
That's how you lose your fans. That's how you lose your there was just no and you'll hear the same, man, and you'll hear this a lot. It's just that there was no effort. It's a simple word, but that's what the words that they use. Like it's a second effort of getting back off the ground and getting into the game and looking what's going on and working to tackle or defend, and that's again when we talked about being culturally like playing for something, and that molds players together, and when I talked about earlier, like they're not connected. They're not connected. They might be connected in terms of as good mates. They talk, but they're not connected where they are working off the ball for each other. They're just like, oh well, we'll get them in the next one. Like that shouldn't be that. That's and that comes down to that attitude, that the mindset of the players. Okay, they scored that, or we'll get them. But that shouldn't. It should be. You should be really filthy of. What's happening on our defense line. That should be the conversation. You should be moving up. No one's talking. Who's got who? Just simple things, man. But just. And look, I'm gutted as a Blues, as an Auckland, as an Aucklander myself. But at the same time, and I said it to one of my mates on the message that, you look at the guys that stood up for the Crusaders, they're all from Auckland.
Yeah, you got Braden Eno from Auckland.
Yeah.
You got Shea Fiaki from Auckland.
Yeah. That Moana.
Yeah.
He's from Auckland, and then you got Christian from Auckland. Like that just sort of showed what it meant to them. Like they've gone and highlighted this is the type of player that you've missed out on. It's their work ethic, their how they conduct themselves on the field. Like, You know, it was all about the efforts. Again, it was all about those just second efforts of getting up, making a tackle. And then more Manu he was player of the match, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
He did a turnover, I think. I think he
Got
made
a few turnovers.
Yeah.
He got a few turnovers. You know, and that's just. And then he was originally on the bench, but he found out on the at the captain's run that he was starting, and you know, to go from that, and you know, when we talked about earlier about in the piece about preparation, that's preparation. Do you know, like to be on the bench to then being called that you're going to be starting, for him to get that call, make the shift, and then all of a sudden he plays a man of the match performance. You know, that's a different. You know what I mean? That's a difference also. You know, you look at, and he really prepared himself, knowing that this is okay. I've got to step up now because he's replacing the All Black hooker, and then goes out and puts a performance like he was the All Black hooker.
Shout outs to the other two from other regions. They got their number 9, Preston from Wellington.
So he was awesome too, man. And
he was Tamara from Chiefs. Yeah, it's a good recruiting there from Crusaders. Eh? I don't forget Moore.
But Preston and Tamara played with each other at schoolboy. Yeah, so they played with each other at schoolboy level. I think Preston's from the Chiefs as well.
Is he? I thought he was from Wellington.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think he played for the Wellington. Played for the Wellington NPC team, but I was unsure if he's from. Pretty sure he was from Waikato as well.
So the Blues got a bye next week. Well earned, no, probably well earned, but good timing so they get some of the injured players back after 2 weeks after the bye. But they've got the Hurricanes at home. That's a toss of the coin game, eh? For me.
Yeah.
The Blues Hurricanes having a similar sort of season, eh? Although Hurricanes have won more games. Then the big one in Eden Park against Moana Pasifika. That's a good game for Moana to test themselves, eh?
I think
you're playing for the hearts of the fans. I think you're playing for the bridge, and you're playing for the hearts of the Auckland rugby fans.
So you play for the bridge, and then you play for the motorway down south. Because you get all the people from out south. I reckon if Moana really do publicity for that, and really do some really good advertising, I reckon they'll pack the stadium, eh? Like if they drop the tickets, I think if they drop the prices of the tickets, because is that a Eden Park or is that a
Eden Park game? Eden Park.
Is that a Blues home game, eh?
Yeah, Blues home game. Yeah.
Yeah, because I reckon if they
and then they got Crusaders after that. So yeah, another really good stretch for the Blues. But I think after we'll see after the bye whether they learn their lessons or not. Yeah. They need to take their revenge on the Crusaders, but something tells me I don't think so.
That might be the earliest. That might be the quickest reign as a head coach, if that's going to be the case.
I think they need to win every game now to even make the top 6. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big ask now. Yeah, not looking good.
And they still got the team to do it. They had the team to do it. Just, I think once it clicked, it clicks. When it clicks in terms of how they understand what they're playing, maybe not quite sure whether they all understand how they want to play. Like when you look at the coach's box, and then you see the old Waitakere old boy sitting there, and he just looks frustrated, eh? So many, I feel for Ice, man.
Yeah. Oh well. Sweet, that's us for another week. We'll I'll let you go. But yeah, man, thanks for jumping on like always.
Appreciate it.
We'll do it again next week. Talk about round 6. Was it? No, round 7. No.
Yeah, and we'll have a chat about this afternoon's game and see where the draw and the falls, because it's a double header, eh? So the women's are playing the Fijiana, and the Fijiana team have been going really well. in the comp. They're not a bad team, to be honest. So
You know, the women's comp, they need to combine with New Zealand, eh?
yeah, man. That's exactly what I was just going to say. I was going to say, I'd like to see the Super Rugby for the women's in Oz, combined with the Kiwi one.
Is it money? Is that the reason why it's not happening?
Always is, man. It's hard, but it's funny because the Australian government helped fund the draw and the Fijiana, so
Right.
it's just one of those things, trying to know who in the government where you can get funding to fund your own teams.
Yeah. Oh well, it's good concept to combine the two. We'll see what happens in the future. Okay, that's us, man.
Sicky, man.
See you next week, man.
Yeah, easy.
Bye.
Is it?